So Gloria Steinem is quoted as saying, "The story of women's struggle for equality begins with no single feminist, nor any one organization, but the collective efforts of all who care about human rights." So happy International Women's Day to all of the women who continue to do this work today. So when Rick originally asked me to present today, he said, well, do you want to lift the women up from history like you've done before? So I'm like, I'm always good for that, because I think that just like any holiday, you know, you give more thought to it when you have something you actually have to do to celebrate that holiday. So I started looking at the Women's History Museum.org, and they always have a great lineup of people, and the Smithsonian has one, and there's no end of resources that we can avail ourselves to. And now that the United States celebrates an entire month, we have a month to plumb all of those resources and really expose ourselves to the women who have been lost and can be found and pulled back out of deep history and recognized for the important work that they did. The National Women's History Museum website offers more eloquently than I. These months are not just commemorative. They are moments to deepen understanding, broaden perspective, and bring the stories that shape our history fully into view. By remembering who came before us, what they achieved, and the circumstances they face, we help the next generation of change makers see what is possible and believe in a more just and inclusive future. They have a ton of really interesting videos I highly recommend, and I think it's really relevant to what you were just talking about. We can learn from history, and we can do it better in the next iteration. So, and then Jimmy Carter, who we referenced, he made the first National Women's Week, I think, before it became a month-long celebration. I'm quoting him, "From the first settlers who came to our shores, from the first American Indian families who befriended them, men and women have worked together to build this nation. Too often, the women were unsung, and sometimes the contributions went unnoticed." Sometimes? "But the achievement, leadership, courage, strength, and love of all the women who built America was as vital as that of the names of the men's names we know so well." So my exploration today really was an interesting experience, because I ran across on the Women's Museum.org site a young woman by the name of Alice Ball. And you know, I'm a nurse, so everything medicine is very interesting to me. But it also, this deep dive into her gave me the chance to take a look at who tells the story. So how does the story get told? And we often talk about that history is told by the winners. So I read a couple of perspectives that told the story of Alice Ball, but without Alice Ball in it, and somebody else gets the credit because more work was done farther on. So I think these times right now, if they've taught us nothing, they've taught us that we need to check our sources and check the point of view that we're learning about something from, to see if there's something additional that we can learn from a different point of view. So this was a remarkable African-American woman who was born in 1892. And at the age of 23, developed the only effective treatment at the time for leprosy. Now, we don't really think about leprosy much anymore as the scourge that it was to people back in those days. She was brilliant, and that's evidenced by the fact that she had 2 degrees and a master's degree in pharmaceuticals. So at age 23, she was invited to Hawaii, the University of Hawaii, to become an instructor. At age 23, that just amazes me, because I practiced with an associate degree for 25 years before I got a chance to go back to school to finish my master's. And to think the avenues and the ideas that are open to you if you have a brilliant mind that can get you all the way out your master's at age 23. Before I even read anything more, I was really impressed with this young woman. The results of the work that she did in medicine returned thousands of people to health, and allowed them to be released from these terribly cruel isolation camps that they were forced to live in because they had the disease. So there are many thousands of people, not only in Hawaii, but worldwide. So I thought this was great the more that I talked about it. And Rick said, hey, do you know Sunday is actually International Women's Day? Because her work affected people internationally as well. So it wasn't just a local effect. So I knew nothing about leprosy, but I did learn that we don't call it leprosy anymore. So that might be why we all think leprosy's gone away. The reason we don't call it leprosy anymore is because a Dr. Hansen came along and developed the first antibiotic that could actually fully kill the disease. So before that, she was able to manage the disease. So she goes off to Hawaii. She's teaching. These two doctors come to her and say, we've seen your work for your master's degree. And it's very technical, and I'm not even going to try to explain it, but she was able to extract something from something to make it useful. And he said, I think we need that same process here, because we have this, it's like a chalamuga tree that secretes an oil that is useful in leprosy, but it is not tolerated orally, and it's too thick to be injected to become a treatment. So she was able to, through a series of the one science space called it, through a series of complex and elegant moves, she was able to distill this oil from the oil the active ingredient that allowed it to become an injectable that was allowed to be able to treat something like leprosy. And I think if you think about it, we know about leprosy like we talk about leprosy in the Bible. Leprosy's been around for a long time. So I would like to say that I someday could leave some kind of imprint on the world like that. And she almost didn't, because there was apparently a lab accident, and she was exposed to chlorine gas in a lab experiment, and she sickened and died. So she died at age 23 before her thesis and work on the extraction that she did from this oil was able to be published. So what happens then? A story that is not unfamiliar to women in history. A man comes along. Turns out, in the end, he ends up to be the dean of the college, or the president of the college, and his name was Dean. He took her work, he renamed it Dean's Method, and then proceeded to capitalize on that work, taking all the credit for himself. So, but women to the rescue again, because there was a woman, a female historian in Hawaii, Catherine Takara, who investigated and found the original work that Alice Ball had begun to write before she died. And so she published the fact that this was Alice Ball's work, not this Dean. So it's considered by some one of the most egregious medical thefts in history. So I don't know, I didn't investigate how true that is, but it's pretty egregious to steal anybody's work. If you do an essay and you steal somebody's work, that's huge. Steal a whole body of work from somebody and then call it your own is just egregious. That's the only word I can come up with for it. So Catherine Takara is the one who restored her to history, but then, like I said, depending on how you read the story, there were two scientists who asked her to do the work on the oil, and the other guy finally published a paper and said, I asked her to solve this problem for me, and she did it. But it was after Takara's work was already published, so he was willing to come out and vindicate that Takara was correct, but he didn't ever come out and say, wait a minute, we asked Alice Ball to do this work, and she's the one who should get the credit. So Hawaii did finally come around to recognizing Alice Ball, and they put a plaque on the tree that has the oil out in front of the college. The second physician that did ask her to do the work helped engineer a scholarship fund in her name, the Alice Ball Scholarship, and the state has named a day in her honor. Additionally, in 2007, they posthumously awarded her the Regent's Medal of Distinction. So this kind of recognition comes far too late for poor Alice, but for all of us women, it remains hard that we are out there doing important things. We should be recognized for the fact that we can change the world, not just immediately around us, but across the board. And for me, I wonder, what could Alice Ball have done for us if she lived past age 23? Because she had accomplished all of that at age 23, and I just find that amazing. So a couple years ago, I shared a poem. I'm not going to share it again today, but I was talking to Sandy about it. And what I want to remind us is that right now, we are somebody's past. We are people in the future's past. It's kind of a weird serpentine thought, but what we do matters, and the women that stand up and are recognized in history, not as well as we would like to believe, but I want to name a few of my favorites. So people like Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Amanda Gorman, Jasmine Crockett, Jessica Craven, who is a favorite writer of mine. All of these women are standing up and becoming part of the history that in the future they'll stand and we will be their past. And for me, that's an exciting thought of what we're doing here, what we do every day matters, and we should keep doing it.